I mean, I guess you're here, so you probably know who I am, but I am
Should I get
Greg.
to introduce you?
Yeah. Susan needs to introduce me.
Oh, yeah,
I don't
go.
need someone to
Hold on a
introduce me. I'm way too informal to like.
No, so this is Greg Rowe. He started out with, he wrote to me on the internet one time, and it wasn't Twitter, and he said, look, I kind of want to start this group over in Santa Cruz, and I understand that you have something to do with these groups or something. I don't really know what you do or who you are, but can you give me some help or direction or something? And I said, sure. And he, we had a nice Zoom conversation, and he looked like a nice guy, I don't know. And so, the Monterey County Skeptics started, what do? We handle your meetup. We pay for your meetup costs, which is $300 a year, by the way, you guys. So we pay for that. About Time does. We take care of that, and we've been like a sister organization with them because we've wanted so bad for you guys to be active. They've tried to do groups over here, and they've just never succeeded. And here Susan's been putting her hand up a lot saying, well, can't we do that? And we're like, yeah, go for it, Susan. And she's like, okay, I'll get a speaker. She got Bertha Vasquez over here. That was amazing. She was so awesome. So Greg has just kind of been putting his hand up. Not only whenever we show up at Cyclone and there's aluminum foil hats to fold, what's the term I've been using? Voluntolding people. And he's just done a great job, and I'm so glad that we finally got the SkeptiCamp together. So here you go, Greg Rowe.
Okay, as I was putting this Today thing going, and there's the science themed drag show after this that I've been sending emails back and forth during most of the day today while trying to also watch everybody's talk. And also have a theater thing going on tomorrow that I'm doing special effects for. I'll just do a plug for that. If anybody likes Misery, the Stephen King book or movie, they're doing a production of Misery at Actors Theater here, and I'll be doing special effects. So if you see blood spraying everywhere, that's me. Anyway, because of all this stuff going on, I did not get really a lot of time to prepare the talk that I wanted to, so I'm going to sort of introduce the topic a bit and then kind of just open it up for a discussion that'll make sense in a few minutes. So I've done a lot of reading lately. Obviously, where we are in the country, there's a lot of division. It seems like the left is getting further left, or right is getting further right, and people aren't talking, and everybody just hates each other, and it's bothering everybody, I think. And so I just started reading a lot recently, and so some of the books that I've read on the topics recently are I Never Thought of It That Way by Monica Guzman, this How to Change Minds by David McRaney, I think it's pronounced, Outraged by Kurt Gray, a couple other audio ones, The Persuaders, I can't remember the name of the author on that one, but all great books. I feel like more people need to sort of start reading about this, and it's just, they're either about how to change minds, or just how to have productive conversations with people you don't agree with, because if we don't talk to each other, we're not going to get anywhere, and that's problematic, and it's problematic politically, but also I think it could have something to do with the skeptical community and science communication and stuff in general. Monica Guzman, in her book, she kind of oh, look at that, a spam call coming on my phone or my computer. I bet I know what that, oh no, that's 831 number. Huh? Don't know who that is. Yeah. Yeah, they're like, he's talking now, let's interrupt him. So she has a thing called SOS, and it's, I always forget the first one. The first S. What is it? Sorting. Okay. So it's sorting, othering, and siloing, and it's the concept is that when say you go to a party, and you start talking and mingling to people, and you find people you might have something. We have something in common. It's something about work or sports or music or science or something. Of course, for this group, and then you might run into someone in the hall and you kind of talk and like you didn't really come up with a topic, and then about an hour into the party, people are in little groups that they've found their people that they can talk to, and so you kind of sort in social gatherings. And then if you look at political maps, there's all these like blue cities, and then there's rural red areas and stuff like that, and so people kind of naturally sort a bit, and then once you get into these sorted groups, there's kind of, in human nature, people tend to be like, well, we are us and they are them, and it's us and them, and people spend a lot of time trying to demonize each other. It's like, we're the in group, they're the out group, and let's try to find more reasons why we're different. And one of the books, I can't remember which one, they were talking about how people's views on the other side are almost always like really incorrect. Whether it's Republicans talking about Democrats or Democrats talking about Republicans. I know I'm talking a lot about politics, and this is normally a science type thing, but I'll bring it around. Whereas like it was something like, take LGBTQ issues. You ask, people on the far right, how many people in the Democrat Party do you think actually identify as, gay or trans or something like that? And it's like, 50%. And it's, well, clearly it's not 50%. Or, people on the left, how many Republicans, what percentage of Republicans do you think make over $300,000 a year? Because Republicans are rich, that's the why they want tax breaks and, stuff like that. And it's like, people will say like, 46%, or something, if you averaged out people's answer, and it's like, no, it's actually a really small percent of Republicans that are really rich. And just how people just don't understand actually where the other side is. Like every time you bring up any issue, people always estimate it to be far more extreme than the actual facts if you actually asked all the Republicans or asked all the Democrats. And it just helps everybody to kind of just stay in their own camp and demonize each other. And then a final concept she talks about is called siloing, is where once you've segregated yourselves and you've othered them, then you stay in your silo. Social media obviously is really good at keeping everybody in their silo, because all the algorithms just kind of feed you more of what you've already read, and then they reinforce the things you've read, and you don't get exposed to a whole lot of media that's actually unbiased, or at least unbiased as a lot of the things like Reuters and stuff try to be. And so there's a lot of been research in social sciences of trying to figure out like, well, how do we bridge this divide? And I've come across a few organizations now that are trying to get people talking, and I think they're really cool. Some of them are started from people on the right, some people are started from people on the left. I think, Monica Guzman here, she's somehow involved, I'm not sure what her title was, involved in a group, I think it's called Better Angels. And
it's Brighter Angels.
Brighter Angels? Oh, okay, yeah, and then they switched it, yeah. And it was started by this guy who was, I think, like evangelical Christian, but he even realized that, we need to talk. Like all this like demonizing each other is not good, and like it's not good for the country or community or anybody individually. Seriously?
They're trying to interrupt.
Yeah.
They.
That was actually a call about what's happening after Anyway, I'll try to get into the group discussion, then I'll call him back. So anyway, where was I now?
Brighter Angels.
Better Angels. The guy who started it, evangelical Christian and stuff, and he actually was very, was it 2015, I think, that the Supreme Court decided that, gay marriage became legal. He was very against gay marriage. And because of his work in his own organization, he morally is still against it, but he thought it should be legalized. He actually changed his mind because of his own work. And, I think that's kind of the best scenario. I mean, he doesn't have to, he can still think it's immoral himself, but think that, my personal morals don't need to force everybody to do what I think is right. And, we live in a pluralistic society. we're not going to agree on everything. One of the comments I heard the other day was, the type of country where everybody agrees on the same thing and always agrees on everything is pretty much a dictatorship. And we know we don't want to live in a dictatorship. So we need to understand that we are going to have different views on things, but we need to act in such a way that, people can be themselves. And anyway, she works for this organization. That's how I got on that. And there's a few other organizations that are doing stuff like that and getting together. And I think Better Angels, you can go onto their website and you can actually register and have like group discussions. They'll hook you up. So like if, some of us like skeptics got on, we can like get hooked up with somebody who is either on the opposite political spectrum or like anti-vaxxers, and they'll have like moderated discussions so we can discuss it and try to, find the middle ground and try to understand the person, not demonize them. Because if you demonize people, they're never going to listen to you. You have to show people respect, even if you really disagree with it, like really strongly disagree, and even if you think they're kind of a horrible person. If you don't show them respect, you're never going to actually be able to change their mind and bring them to your side. And so a lot of what I've been reading lately is how to have these productive discussions. There's a bunch of different techniques that are out there. One's called street epistemology, and there's a whole like YouTube channel for that, and probably several, where you can go and you watch these videos on people trying to change people's minds using street epistemology. There's another one called it's something specific. I think maybe see if I wrote it down. I do actually have notes. Smart politics, which is another way to talk to people and have these productive conversations. Another one, deep canvassing, which was developed at the leadership labs down in Los Angeles, I think specifically originally about the gay marriage issue in like 2015, or probably started a little bit before that. But anyway, they have all come up with their techniques, and I was going to read kind of a point-to-point thing about one of the techniques here, just so you get an idea. Okay, so this is the summary of the steps for deep canvassing. So step one is you establish a rapport with the person you're trying to talk to, and deep canvassing is like what you would expect. It's like people going door to door and just talking to people about issues. So assure the other person that you aren't out to shame them, and ask them for consent to explore their reasoning. Step two, ask how strongly they feel about an issue on a scale of 1 to 10. So you might, if it was gay marriage or abortion rights or something like that, you might ask them, they'd be like, well, 5, they're kind of middle ground or something, or maybe they'd be like a 9 because they're really for legalizing it, or a 1 because they're really against. And then you share a story about someone affected by the issue. And this is like a really, really, really important part, which I will get to in a second. And that's you sharing a story about somebody that was affected or personally, and then them also, like try to get some stories out of them, get some personal stories. Ask a second time how strongly they feel, and if the number moved after sharing these stories, if the number moved, ask them why it moved. And the whole idea is like, you're not purposely trying to argue with them, you're not confronting them, you're not trying to you're not trying to say, I'm here to change your mind. You're trying to get them to think. Because the best person to change their mind is yourself, of course. And once they've settled, you ask them, does that number feel right to you? Once they've offered their reasons, we're on step 6 now, sorry. Repeat back to them in your own words. So once they explain to you why the number feels right, you reflectively listen back to them and try to put in your words what they've just told you. So that way they feel heard, and then they can correct you whether you got it right or not. Step 7, ask if there was a time in their life before they felt that way, and if so, what led to their current attitude. Again, sharing stories, personal experiences, that probably shaped their current opinion on issues. Then again, step 8 is listen to their answer. You summarize their answer and repeat it back to them. Step 9, briefly share your personal story and how you reached your position on that issue. But very important there, don't argue. Just share your story. And then 10, ask for their rating a final time and then wrap it up and wish them well. And what they found is that this actually works really well. And you might ask somebody how they feel on a topic, and they might say, oh, I feel like, oh, a 3 on that. Like I'm, 3 that you're maybe against, legalizing abortion. So like a 3 would be like, I'm mostly against abortion, but I'm not a 1. You might have that talk with somebody and it might not change their number, but you might after that talk, maybe they're a 5 now. And yeah, they're not a 10, but would you really expect someone to switch from a 3 to a 10 in one, 20-minute conversation, or maybe even 5 or 10 minute? Of course you wouldn't. And so if you've moved their number, that's progress, and that's a success. And so there's a bunch of these other methods of doing this. I would read you the other ones, but it would almost sound exactly like that first one. So after I started learning about all these methods, I'm like, oh, they're all really similar, and they all, it was different groups trying to, the deep canvassing was just developed by the Leadership Lab at this, nonprofit in LA. They weren't even scientists or researchers or anything. They just started doing the canvassing, and then they started, well, this isn't working, we're not getting anywhere, let's try this. And then they kept reiterating, and then finally they're like, oh, this is working. And then after that, researchers came in because they're like, what are you guys doing? This seems effective. So the sociologists started coming in, and political scientists, and then started researching, and then published a paper, got published in Science. There was a little problem with that paper, got retracted, but then they published a second paper, and it turned out it was something about the way they interpreted the data. It was the paper, it wasn't the actual data that was the problem, so they actually republished a new paper on the data, I think in 2016. But the street epistemology and the smart politics types of discussions have a lot of similarities, and one of the big things is asking for their stories and sharing your story. And the researchers doing this have tested this out now in a bunch of different studies, and you can do all the steps. If you remove the stories, the effectiveness basically disappears completely. And which is just it's like night and day. It goes from being pretty successful to there's no effect. There's these conversations aren't going anywhere. And so it's, yeah. And I'm thinking about all this stuff, and it's okay, we need more of this because especially online. I guess that's another thing I'm getting to. See, this is disorganized because my brain is scrambled right now. So, I'm thinking the other day I was online and someone had posted something with a pride flag, and then there was some person put a comment on there, and it was it was probably a news article, so it was just talking about the event, and then someone commented, oh, great that these people want to display the hate flag, and then put pride flag in parentheses, and then first thing was really, you think that symbolizes hate? And then there was 8 people below him saying, oh, we see who the real hater is here, and I'm and it was kind of after doing all this reading, it's yeah, that's not going to work. Here's the real hater, you're the and now they're just pointing fingers at each other. I didn't do it because Facebook and yeah, but what I really wanted to ask is hey, why do you think that symbolizes hate? And then and then listen without judgment, just let the person speak, and that just using all these techniques, and where you find out more about why he feels the way he feels, and then maybe provide some gentle feedback, and then use maybe the number thing, how much are you for or against pride events or whatever the specific thing was. and the people, you might have been able to get that person to be like, oh yeah, I guess it's not really a hate flag, But all those people, we see who the real hater is. Well, you've just made him dig his heels into his own corner, and you're like basically poisoning it to like have any progress whatsoever. And so I've seen a lot of this, especially online. And I think pretty much I kind of knew this before, but like after reading on all the stuff, of like trying to discuss anything online is pretty much useless, especially in the public forum, I should say. Quite a few years ago, I'm saying like 10 or 12 years ago, somebody posted kind of like I wouldn't say total anti-vax because that sounds very extreme, but like a vax, basically someone on a friend's post, it was a mutual friend. I didn't know the person who made the comment, and I couldn't even tell you who they are to this day. But they made a comment that was, like, oh, I have children, I'm not going to vaccinate my children, and blah 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 blah. And I was like, okay, that's concerning, like as it would be, for everybody. And I knew if I commented right there in a public forum on a mutual friend's Facebook post, no one wants to have, like, maybe I could show them that they were wrong or something like that. Well, you don't do that publicly. No one's going to like, oh, that was a great point. I'm suddenly changing my opinion right here on Facebook. Like, yeah, maybe that happens, like, very, very rarely, but unlikely. So I messaged the person directly, and I just had a private conversation with them. So it wasn't in public view. And I unknowingly kind of used the techniques in here, like, oh, so why are you against vaccines? And okay, listen to them, and kind of built the rapport first of like, I didn't judge them right out of the gate. I didn't try to present them with facts. One thing that we found when all the research is actually using facts for your argument don't work, and pretty much never works. It's about personal stories and how they arrived at their opinion, and then sharing the stories back and forth, and then them seeing how you got to their position, and you can nudge people that way. But anyway, long story short, I had probably like a 20-minute conversation with this person over Facebook Messenger, and by the end, they didn't say so, but I was pretty sure. And she kind of mentioned it, that she was actually, next time she was at the pediatrician with her child, they were going to talk to the doctor about vaccinations. Yay. And I'm like, yay. So anyway, the techniques in here, it's really great. And just trying to reading something that's actually positive, because everything in the news lately has seemed like, oh, we're doomed. But then reading stuff about how can you actually have these really good conversations with people that you really disagree with, and then actually changing minds and getting somewhere, and realizing that you're maybe not quite as extremely different as you thought, because a lot of the same concerns and worries are the same. For example, like the gay marriage issue, actually, it was talked a lot about in one of the books. If you ask somebody on the extreme right, they might be against gay marriage because they want to protect their children. And well, what do we also want to do? Protect our children. Okay, so the root of it is the same, but they've been through something in their life, or experienced things and heard things that make them feel like that is protecting their children. And so trying to tell them they're wrong and they're a hater and blah, 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 calling them a bigot, like Nazis or whatever, you're not going to get anywhere. It's not going to change anybody's mind. And it's really hard to do, talk to these people that really you think are being really hateful. But we have to, because there's no other way, really. We've got to do it. And that's how you change minds, not by labeling them and calling them names and just thinking that they're not even worth talking to. You might get really, really extreme ends of the spectrum that, maybe they're probably not a good place to start to change minds, but most people aren't that extreme. And so anyway, this kind of gotten me looping around to thinking about skepticism. So it's what do we do as skeptics? Well, we like science, and we talk about facts, and we talk about all these things, that don't work. Because we're all about, facts and sharing facts, and, read Skeptical Inquirer, it's all facts. And then we, a lot of people get online and have arguments about the facts. But all the research shows that arguing about the facts doesn't actually work. So kind of what I wanted to do is now just sort of like, how do you bring that into skepticism? Because like so much of it is about, facts and what is true. And there is a place for truth. And so a lot of these, the arguments and the methods of talking in these books are very particular to certain scenarios and contexts. So for example, there are some contexts where facts absolutely do work, like among scientists, because you're trained to like, that's what we're doing. And everybody, it's expected that you're talking about facts. So in that context, facts absolutely do work. But in like a lot of these situations, they don't work at all. Like when it comes to like people's values, people's feelings on opinions, or the issues of the day, and some more pseudoscience-y truth claims as well. And then so they found out like the deep canvassing, that tactic, and like I said, there's so much overlap between them. The deep canvassing tends to work for changing people's minds on values. The street epistemology tends to work better and is designed more for truth claims. Like it's like, does God exist? Is the earth flat? So the street epistemology has kind of been geared more towards those conversations. So if you're trying to think that's more of a fact-based thing, rather than values and your views on issues, the street epistemology seems to work fairly well. But again, the approach is not actually coming out and arguing about the facts though, even with street epistemology, where its most effective thing is about truth claims. But you don't actually just come out and just argue facts, because that still doesn't work. And then smart politics, that strategy works more for political issues. But anyway, I don't know if anybody has any ideas, but it's really hard when I was trying to think of like, so you're talking about science communication and like stuff, how do we do science communication and skepticism without arguing the facts? Because that kind of seems like what it is. So it's like, I don't know. I've been thinking about this in the past week, and so I don't know if anybody has any ideas. I was hoping that it might start some kind of discussion. Leonard.
So I don't really think that an awful lot of the problem is based on incorrect facts. As much as a pedant as I can be, the issue isn't so much what you know or what you don't know or what facts you had. It's what process do you use to reach your conclusions. So to me, skepticism isn't so much the Carl Sagan quote, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, which he didn't come up with.
Yeah.
It's the acknowledgement that as humans, we are really prone to getting shit wrong. And we are subject to all sorts of cognitive illusions and perceptual biases. And we need to acknowledge those, actively accept them, and work to avoid being fooled. Because there's a huge set of industries now whose entire purpose is to fool us. And if you work at it from that level and that lens, you make it a story. I got fooled this way. This is how people can get fooled. Look at the evidence, think about the motivations, and work through it together.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes me think of like, the wellness industry, which I was just reading the other day, actually is now a larger industry in dollar amount than big pharma.
It's big wellness.
Yeah, it's big wellness. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I guess we're not going to go door to door necessarily as skeptics. I suppose you could, but you know, it's, you know, with RFK Jr. and the vaccine stuff, and now Tylenol.
We promised to disclose the reason for the autism epidemic by September.
Yeah.
And he did.
Yeah, he had to say something.
Well, you don't think you got it right?
Well, what the funny thing is that everything he's come out of his mouth in the last 15 years you thought he was going to come out and say vaccines.
Uh-huh.
And I suspect he got enough pushback privately to like not say that. You've got to come up with something else, and that's where he got the Tylenol thing from. But I don't know, that's my speculation.
My speculation is that he's planning on suing the makers of Tylenol. And he's
Well,
setting
I'm
it up
sure
for all
they'll
the
plan
Yeah.
on suing him.
Well, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like they're probably wanting to sue him at this point. Yeah, Susan.
Have you seen the YouTuber that goes by the name of Parker Get a Job?
I don't think so.
Because he's been fascinating. For some reason, he came up on my YouTube channel, and I've been watching his debates with people who are MAGA people. Paul, you've seen this?
Yeah, a bunch.
Yeah, it's really interesting because the people who are, and he uses a lot of good techniques. Some of it is kind of abrasive, and I don't like that, but it's fascinating. He gets millions and millions of views off of TikTok and YouTube and
What's
other.
his name?
Parker Get a Job. It's all one word. It's all like one thing. He's a young guy. He was a communist, I guess, or something before, and he's got an economics degree. He's really good at debating things. He was actually at the shooting of Charlie Kirk. He was in the audience, just like 30 feet away when it happened, and it was just listening to him have these arguments with people, and some of them aren't really arguments; they're just discussions. It's kind of the Socratic method, but you can see people changing their minds, and the arguments they're making of why they supported Donald Trump are fascinating. Almost all of them are, he's keeping out illegals, and there are people who are getting subsidies that should not be getting subsidies, food stamps, welfare, whatever. I know this guy, I went to school with this woman, or whatever, and that is basically their best argument. And once he starts explaining things to them a little better, you see some minds change, and I think it's an interesting project. I don't know how long he's been doing this, but
Yeah, I'll have to check that out.
It's really, it's an interesting look into that world.
Yeah, I know. There was a recent video from a couple weeks ago. I don't know if this guy is a YouTuber or what, but he connected with Bernie Sanders and brought Bernie Sanders down to West Virginia.
That was good.
And yeah, and like he basically went to like hardcore Trump country, West Virginia, and just talked to people. And he like, even like one of the younger guys, he said he's always been aligned with Democrat and still voted for Trump.
Yeah.
But after talking to him, like a bunch of the people were like, oh, we've like just heard snippets about you on Fox News, and we thought you were some like crazy liberal guy to Bernie Sanders, and they're like, actually, look, you're kind of on our side because he's all about, you know, workers' rights and like equal pay and all of the like stuff that they were getting behind, and at the end of the, you know, the video, there was like at least a couple of them were just like, I've got my Bernie shirt, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, he went down there, he was talking to people that he could very much disagreed with him, and just had a conversation with him, asked him about the personal experiences and stuff, and shared stuff about him, and then that changed minds. He didn't go down there and, you know, try to debate them or anything like that. Yeah.
That was one of the tips shared at a workshop at SciCon on talking to people. Instead of saying chiropractors or quacks who will rip you off, share a personal story about your sister's baby who had its neck damaged by a chiropractor.
Yeah.
Your sister didn't know that a chiropractor should never be allowed to touch a baby's neck. And a tearjerker story will do way more than saying chiropractors.
Yeah, because it's not one of these books. I think it was the guy who wrote the Persuaders book. He was on a podcast I listened to, and he met up with Noam Chomsky, and they had a discussion, and Noam Chomsky said, I hated your book. And he's like, what? Why? And he's like, because it's all about emotional persuasion. It's like it was like a marketing book. And he's like, you know, I deal in facts, you know, like we need to argue the facts. And he's like, no, that's the whole point of my book. You missed it. Like you have to share these personal stories because that's how people connect. And by the end of the conversation, I think Noam Chomsky was like, okay, you might be right. I still have trouble with it.